This Strand Hunter build will allow you to have unlimited Threadlings, allowing you to dominate in any Crucible situation. From 6v6 game modes like Control to 3v3 game modes like Competitive and Trials, this build works for all. In this video, I'll be going in depth about the whole build when it comes to the perfect exotics, fragments, aspects, and abilities needed to be a monster in PvP. So make sure to stick around to the end of the video to get the full idea of this build. Or, of course, you can just skip through, but I'd really appreciate if you stuck around because it helps out my channel a ton. All the support lately has been insane, so keep it coming. And if you're new to the channel, feel free to hit that like and subscribe button to join the community. Yeah, enough of that, let's hop straight into the build. Quickly starting off with the exotic I'll be using for this build, I'm using the 6 Coyote. It's a very simple exotic. The only thing you get from it is an additional dodge charge, and you'll see why that's important shortly. Now jumping straight into the subclass, starting with my first aspect, I'm running Widow Silk. It's a very straightforward aspect. You just get an additional grenade charge, and also your grappling hook will create a grapple tangle at the grapple point. But we're not running grapple with this build, so that doesn't really matter. Instead, we'll be using a Threadling grenade, which is a woven projectile that reweaves itself into a Threadling while in flight. So basically, you throw the Threadling onto the ground near a target. It'll turn into 3 separate Threadlings that'll seek out and track targets. And once they jump on a target, they do about 45 damage each. So you're going to be doing 135 damage with your Threadling grenade if it hits them. So that's why I chose this first aspect, because having 2 of these grenades is super helpful in a lot of situations. Moving on to our next aspect, we have Threaded Spectre. When you activate your class ability, you leave behind a decoy woven from strand matter that draws the attention of nearby combatants. After taking significant damage or when combatants approach, the decoy detonates, dealing damage and releasing Threadlings that seek out and attack nearby foes. So what I like to do with this is I either like to engage a fight with this, or if I need to get out of a fight, I dodge and leave behind my decoy, causing enemies to get distracted on it and shoot it, because especially when it comes to controller players, the decoy will take full control of your aim assist and it'll lock onto it, making it really hard to lock back onto you, the target. So it is very beneficial to use in PvP. And then if they destroy it, they'll get some Threadlings that'll chase after them as well. So if they're already low, it'll either kill them, or it'll scare them away and give you enough time to escape and heal up and get back in the fight. Another great way to use it is if someone's pushing you, you can put it down and they have to push through it, causing the damage from detonation and the Threadlings all hitting them at once. So they're basically already half health when they get into the fight with you. So it's really a great aspect and works really well with this build. Now moving on to the rest of my abilities, of course we're using Threaded Spike. They're a rope dart that bounces between targets, damaging and severing them. The dart will return to you once it's done, returning melee energy to you for each target hit. I love using the strand melee because you can throw it super quickly, and the sever effect it has is pretty nice because it makes enemies do less damage to you, so it's always nice to use. Going more into detail about the sever, whenever you sever a target, they do 15% less damage for 8 seconds, so it's a pretty big debuff. And if you haven't tried these out yet, the tracking on them is crazy. You can almost kill people around corners with this thing. And then I like to pair that up with my strafe jump, which just gives me really strong directional control in the air. I can jump up, move left and right, which allows me to get good angles for my Threaded Spike throws and my Threadling grenades, which helps me with starting fights or finishing them. And then for my class ability, I like to run Gambler's Dodge, because whenever I dodge near an enemy, it fully recharges my melee ability, aka my Threaded Spike, and allows me to throw another one. So if I'm ever in a sticky situation, I can drop my decoy, jump back, throw my Threaded Spike, and just get off a bunch of damage right away. So it's a very great ability to use with this build, especially if you want to get very up close and personal with this build, push with shotguns, and you're gonna be up in their face. You definitely want to be using this kind of dodge. But that's all for my abilities. Now moving on to my fragments, the first one I have is Thread of Ascent. Activating my grenade ability will reload my weapon and grant bonus airborne effectiveness and handling for a short duration. I like to run this fragment because usually I like to run the dodge that reloads my weapon, but since I'm not running that to get that extra Threaded Spike, still being able to have another way to get my weapon reloaded instantly is a great thing to have. And also the granted bonuses like airborne effectiveness and handling are great for hunters, because you know we like to jump and shoot in the air a lot and be very pushy with shotguns, so those are great for me. And then moving on to my second fragment, I have Thread of Continuity. Suspend, unravel, and sever effects applied to targets have increased duration. So again, there's another quality of life change. Give that sever from your Threaded Spike a longer duration. Nothing too crazy, but it is interchangeable. There's another fragment that could work really well also. Is Thread of Rebirth. Strand weapon final blows have a chance to create a Threadling. So if you're planning on running a strand weapon, I would run Thread of Rebirth, and if you're planning on not running a strand weapon, I'll just run Thread of Continuity. They're interchangeable depending on your playstyle, so whatever weapons you're using, just decide between that. Moving on to our third fragment, we probably have one of the most important important ones, we have Thread of Evolution. Threadlings travel farther and deal additional damage. So if you want your Threadlings to work to their maximal potential and do the most possible damage, you want to have this fragment for sure, especially with this Threadling based build. To be honest, the Threadlings are basically unusable without this, because this fragment also grants a movement speed buff to your Threadlings, making your Threadlings a lot quicker to catch up to targets. And also, to clarify, that 45 damage per Threadling I mentioned earlier is only that much if you're using this fragment, so definitely make sure to use it. And then for our last fragment, we have a pretty crazy one known as Thread of Generation. This is honestly one of the coolest perks that comes with Strand. Dealing damage generates grenade energy. This is cool because it doesn't matter what kind of damage, as long as you do damage, you're going to get increased grenade energy. So it's a very necessary fragment that you definitely want to put on your build. But yeah, that's the last of my fragments, and that's all for my subclass. I'm going to quickly show you guys what it looks like. If you want to copy it, here you go, or you can mix around yourself. Feel free to do whatever, but this is what it looks like. And then going back to that Thread of Rebirth perk that requires to use a strand weapon to get final blows in order to create Threadlings, some good options for that for primary slot would be some weapons like the Immortal SMG, the Synchronic Roulette SMG, Quicksilver Storm with a catalyst on it that creates a new strand, and also the Kept Confidence hand cannon is also a great option. And then for the secondary slot, I'm honestly not too sure. I don't know of any strand secondary weapons off the top of my head because I don't own any. But for the power slot, I know of a great one for the Trials grenade launcher known as the Cataphract GL3. That's a great option. Anytime you get a kill with that, you can possibly spawn a Threadling, chase more targets down. Of course, a great weapon. But yeah, those are the best strand weapons I can think of off the top of my head that I believe would fit well with this build. But of course, if we don't use that fragment, then you can use whatever weapon you want and don't even have to worry about that. I personally choose not to even use it because only having very small selection of weapons to use is personally not my style, because I like to switch weapons a lot, and if I have to worry about them being stranded or not and I have to go back and keep switching my fragments, it's going to be not a fun time for me. But yeah, enough of that. Moving on to my setup. For this build specifically, I like to run a shotgun and submachine gun. But if it's a more far range map and you're finding a hard time getting close to people, you can either switch to an auto rifle or a pulse rifle, and then of course a grenade launcher, because those are pretty meta in PvP right now. Now going over the stats I would run for this, I would go for high mobility and discipline, also matched up with recovery. But in the order I would do it is probably mobility, recovery, and then discipline, just because I feel like mobility and recovery are the most important ones for hunters in PvP. But discipline's also good to get your Threadling grenades back as quick as possible. So I'll definitely put discipline last, and then if you want to put someone in intellect, it's up to you. But definitely mobility and recovery as the top ones, because we want that mobility to get our dodge back as quick as possible, being able to throw out more clones, which equals more Threadlings, which is what we want. And then recovery, obviously, to regain your health back quicker, get back in fights, and stay alive longer. But yeah, that's all for my stats. Quickly going over my armor mods. For my helmet, I'm running 2 void targeting mods just to help with my submachine gun. And then for my gauntlets, I'm running fastball, increased grenade throw distance, kinetic dexterity for my shotgun, and impact induction. And then for my chest piece, I'm running 2 unflinching void aims because, you know, we all hate getting flinched, so these are always great to have on your build. And then for my boots, I'm running 2 stacks of innervation, reduces my grenade cooldown each time I pick up an overpower, and then 1 stack of absolution, which reduces all my ability cooldowns each time I pick up an overpower, so they all work together pretty well. And then moving on to my cape, I'm running 2 stacks of Reaper, which after using my class ability, my next weapon final blow will spawn an Orb of Power, which will trigger those other 3 things I just talked about. So great thing to have on your cape. And then I'm just running 1 outreach mod to reduce my melee cooldown each time I use my class ability, so my dodge. But yeah, that's my mod setup to get my build maximum efficiency, and that's all I have to show you from my build today. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and decided to try out this build yourself. It is very fun to use, and I've enjoyed it a lot these past few days, so let me know in the comments if you decide to try it out, and let me know how it goes. But until next time, my name is Apoxy. Peace.